We're continuing to look at the book of Numbers in this book by book set of studies. And in chapter 2, we've looked at the fact of the cross-shaped layout, the heraldry of identity, the looking to the rising sun. But as a whole, just thinking about the whole of that church layout, with the 12 tribes, with the banners, the heraldry, all centered on the tabernacle where the high priest was based. Now, when we get into chapters 3 and 4, we're going to be looking more closely at the high priest and the Levites that assisted the high priest. But that he was at the center of the camp with those Levites, with that tabernacle that is a model of the universe, and this where the Lord himself sat enthroned. The angel of the Lord was sat enthroned with this pillar of cloud and fire that indicated this is where heaven and earth connect, where this one, the angel of the Lord, sits enthroned between the cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant, in the holiest of holy room at the center of the tabernacle. Now just let's take a moment to appreciate that that entire ancient church was set out in that very structured and ordered way, centered on Christ and the service of Christ around him, and all these symbols of Christ at the center of their life. In other words, they didn't just say to people, well, camp wherever you want, however you want, and let's just see how it goes. The Lord gave very detailed instructions about how they were to structure their life in the wilderness. And that just that basic sense that they were under authority in church life, and that the way they lived, the way they thought, the way life was organized was in this ordered, structured way, and not according to their own opinions or feelings. And every time I look at that, I'm just sort of challenged to resist the spirit of the age, where quite often when I talk to people, and they'll sometimes tell me, oh, I don't want to come to your church because it's not how I like church. Now that, like, there may be very good reasons not to come to our church, but one of them cannot be, I don't like it, it's not my opinion, it's not my feel. That's just nonsense. And sometimes people will say, oh, I like to, I don't really go to church at all because I just like to worship Jesus however I like, and I'll put a CD on and listen to a little bit of worship music, and then maybe go onto the internet and listen to something. And like, no. See, church life is a life under authority, a structured life. We're accountable to each other. We set ourselves up in church as best as we know how, according to the scriptures, according to the word of Christ. He is the head and we must obey. And the Bible tells us how to set church up. And it's just interesting that this book, that's a really focused book on church life, begins with just this very clear statement that church life is structured under authority, centered on Christ, and that each of those individuals knew their place in that whole system, and who was they were under authority, and then their leaders had other leaders above them, all the way up to Moses, Aaron the high priest, and Christ himself. And I find that a refreshing thing, to have that sense of authority and structure, particularly in a world where it's as if there is no authority and no structure. So as we share church life together, let's embrace this thing that's a countercultural moment, that the authority and structure of church is almost really like an oasis in a world which doesn't really have any.